As we're speaking right now, next to the police academy in Philippi, next to the police academy.
Hectic indeed. It is exactly 10 after 9 o'clock. And that brief little clip that we watched was playing out in the Western Cape. As you heard, the person who shot that clip said that it is outside of the police academy in Philippi in the Western Cape. We're now going to be talking with our guest, Reagan Allen, based in the Western Cape, obviously, and we're looking at the story playing out there. It is absolutely frightening, and it has to do with the ongoing taxi strike. And the story in particular that we're going to be covering is health facilities in the Western Cape being shut down for we don't know how long. And this is due to the continued taxi strike, violence, and the disruption of transport in the Cape Metropole, as well as certain rural areas. This has, in fact, resulted in several health facilities being closed, services suspended, and a reduced capacity across the region. And that is not good news at all. Reagan Allen, a very, very good morning to you. You are a community safety MEC. Welcome to the program.
Ms. Ali, thank you so much for bringing us into this particular difficult conversation. I serve as the MEC responsible for police oversight and community safety in the Western Cape, and we have seen since the announcement of a taxi stay away or a taxi strike, violence has erupted in parts of the Western Cape, predominantly in the city of Cape Town. You have correctly indicated that certain health facilities have had to close. I can also confirm that it affected 450,000 of our learners that were unable to get to schools. That includes 17,000 of our educators. We have also seen that social development and the need for social services to be in certain areas were also disrupted. But from a policing oversight point of view, from a community safety point of view, I would want to state on the record that we have seen as of this morning that all roads are open. We have seen that we have been able to deploy at our predominantly hotspot areas. We've already seen 68 arrests that was made for public violence and other criminal related matters, but also 142 criminal investigations that were registered in this regard. Ms. Ali, we have been very clear that we would never want to condone any form of lawlessness, any form of violence. We want to see law and order. We would want to see that our communities can get to and from work, but it's definitely not an ideal situation over the last 5 days since the announcement of the taxi strike.
You must be having sleepless nights, to say the least, as community safety MEC, knowing what is playing out in your part of the world. I have printouts here of looting, how criminality and criminal elements are taking advantage of the situation in the Western Cape, and it is unbelievable. We're seeing people walking away or looting furniture and TVs at the OK Furnitures in the Guguletu Mall. We've also seen that little clip of a car being set on fire, and that's not the first and only car. I believe there have been several others. We also have heard of the Golden Arrow buses that have been set alight. This smacks of outright criminality and mafia tactics. I'm kind of wondering if you guys have the political will to put your foot down and stop it in its tracks. You can't be having an entire city being held at ransom by these taxi mafias.
Ms. Ali, thank you for framing the question in that regard. I am going to attempt to be as blunt and as real as possible. Ms. Ali, when our country faced a number of attacks, during the July unrest of 2020, we saw in the Western Cape that we were able to galvanize all our safety structures across neighborhood watches, CPFs, including the South African Police Service, law enforcement, and we avoided rampage anarchy like we have seen in other provinces. When this particular strike was announced, we already galvanized all our safety structures to ensure that we can be visible. We are deployed at our key hotspots. We have seen, and like you have correctly indicated, there were sporadic incidences of looting. We are gathering all the information and the intelligence in that regard. The arrest that I spoke to earlier on is directly linked to some of the looting that you have now highlighted. It is sporadic in some of our areas. We have currently seen that 8 of our Golden Arrow buses since the commencement of the strike has been petrol bombed. We have seen 4 private vehicles. We have seen 1 ambulance, but we have also seen the stoning of some vehicles in some areas. But I can 100% assure you, it is not anarchy, it is criminality, and we are doing everything in our power to bring these criminals to book. There's also another important facet that I think is very vital to mention. We are aware of criminal elements that will take the opportunity during a strike, during sporadic violence, to take an opportunity to loot. And we have been very quick to actually avert 4 such instances already. One of those that we were able to avert just yesterday was in the area of Mitchell's Plain. That's the area where I grew up in. And we were quick to ensure that those that wanted to start the looting were actually apprehended. We have seen in the Nyanga area, for example, looting has taken place. It was a bigger number of protesters, a bigger number of criminals essentially that wanted to loot in that particular area, but they have been arrested. We are following also all the leads in terms of where some of the goods are that was taken from some of these shops. But I can assure you, I was out on the road at 5:30 this morning. All our roads are open, N1, N2, N7. But we are having a limited amount of public transport available, but it is under control. But we will never disregard the frustration and the pain that many of our communities are feeling during this time, because it has impacted so many of our residents that is needing to get to and from work. But one point, Ms. Ali, that you have mentioned is to bring this matter under control. We have been very clear. Enforcement in terms of how any person uses our road must continue. We can never allow for lawlessness. And when there's laws in place, Ms. Ali, those laws are there to protect citizens. We would never want to see road fatalities. So if a taxi association, if a taxi or a motorist is not obeying the laws, which is national laws, it's in terms of the National Land and Transportation Act, if those laws are not adhered to, there must be consequences. And if it leads to an impoundment because someone has been driving recklessly and negligent, or driving under the influence of alcohol, or even is driving a taxi and does not even have a PDP or a license. So we would want to enforce the law, because we see, Ms. Ali, in other provinces, if the law is not enforced, it leads to anarchy. And we are doing everything in our power to engage communities, but also to engage the relevant safety structures across our province.
And MEC, it's exactly what you're saying. It is lawlessness within the taxi industry, and it's spilled over, and the criminals are taking advantage of the mayhem that has been playing out in the Western Cape. A very sad situation indeed. And I do hope and pray that when you do identify the perpetrators and offenders, that the harshest possible sentences will be passed on them. Because if they get away with it now, they're going to continuously cause such distractions and destruction in the province, and will keep taking these opportunities to cause havoc. That brings me then to the issue around the health facilities that have been shut down. This could, in fact, lead to fatalities, could it not? There could be people who have life threatening, possibly injuries or conditions, and who need medical attention, but they can't get to the facilities concerned, which means that people are going to be losing their loved ones in all of this chaos.
Miss Ali, and that is what deeply angers me. It frustrates me knowing that there is primary services that is needed from social development, but also importantly from the Department of Health. We have seen when our primary healthcare facilities are unable to operate as a result of violence, it impacts the very community that is facing that particular looting or potential strike action. Miss Ali, I was actually devastated on Saturday evening when news broke that there was one ambulance that was petrol bombed. And Miss Ali, I don't have the information on who petrol bombed that particular ambulance, but the reality is that that ambulance was potentially on way to go and help a grandmother, a grandfather, or a young child that needed emergency care. Hence, we have discussed with the South African Police Service and with our law enforcement to ensure that when our essential services are going into our hotspot areas, they are then escorted. But I think it's also vital that that is then a resource taken out of another area, or it is members of our law enforcement or of our South African Police Service that is needing to be recalled because they are either on leave or they are off duty, and that's an additional expense on the state. Whenever there's any looting or any taxi violence or any strike action, it's generally an attack not only on the state, if there's looting and if there is the burning of any infrastructure, but it's also a cost. And as taxpayers, as any person that is contributing, that people are then also then at risk because they are needing, because then certain funding will then have to be cut somewhere else in order to compensate for it. But it's such difficult decisions, Miss Ali, and it angers me and it frustrates me. But we are doing everything in our power. We are working with health, with social development, and education to make sure. And I can confirm, Ms. Ali, this morning via our cabinet meeting. And I just before this interview received another message from the Premier, Alan Winde, where there was a flare up of action in the Ashton area, which is in the Cape Winelands. And the Premier tasked me to engage the South African Police Service urgently to ensure that those that blocked that particular road should be arrested, because we would never want any person, any illegal strike, any person wanting to stop someone else from getting to work or getting home from work, that person must be arrested because it is breaking the law. We have also seen that when we are able to engage our DPP, which is the Director of Public Prosecutions, that in such cases, we would want to see that those people are held accountable and that prosecutions happen so that it can send a stern message to other would-be offenders.
Okay, so MEC, let's look at the issue around talks with Santaco. We do know that the issue around the torching of the Golden Arrow buses, this isn't a new phenomenon. It hasn't only just started recently. This goes back several years because once again, the taxi owners and taxi bosses are wanting, they're very territorial, and they see the buses taking away their business. And I seem to think that there's enough business for both the taxi association and the bus companies. What sort of talks are you going to be holding with the bus companies together with Santago? What do you believe needs to happen and how soon? And how do you believe everyone can meet, the two parties can meet each other halfway in the best interest, not only for themselves and their pockets, but the community at large?
Mr. Ali, I can confirm that our MEC responsible for transport or for mobility in our province have had contact with Santaco as of 12:30 this morning still. That particular discussion is ongoing. We are set to meet again at 11 o'clock this morning to have further discussions. But I want to state clearly, Ms. Ali, under no circumstances can the law be suspended. The law is there to ensure that residents are safe. Any discussion should be in the interest of making sure that there is law and order and that the strike can actually come to a stop so that we can see peace across our country. We would want our taxi operators to get back to work because it is their business, it is their contribution to our society, and that particular business owners, the taxi associations, must ultimately make sure that any person driving a taxi, any person that is using the road and is actually doing business on behalf of a business owner should abide by the law. We cannot have a taxi operator that is wanting to exercise his business outside of the law. So we have been firm in that regard, but that discussion is ongoing and the next set of engagements will occur at 11 a.m. this morning. I'm quite hopeful and also quite realistic in knowing that we would have to have tough conversations. But Ms. Ali, it is about leadership. You have made one comment that resonated with me about that this matters and tax related matters is not new. It has been coming on. We have seen what has happened in Gauteng over many years, where we have seen it in KZN as well. We would never want any entity, any business to want to operate as if they are a law unto themselves. We want to make sure that there's law and order because it's ultimately about reducing road fatalities. It's about ensuring that our people can get to and from work to grow the economy. Our children can get to school, that they can learn, that they can make the best of their life. Social workers can be in our areas so that social services can be rendered. And like you have indicated, the importance of healthcare facilities to help and assist the most vulnerable people. But those talks are ongoing and it will commence again at 11 a.m.
MEC Reagan Allen, MEC for Community Safety, thank you indeed for chatting with us this morning. You speak with much confidence, and I hope and pray that the talks will result in a very positive outcome for everybody concerned. And we will talk with you later in the week, possibly even tomorrow, just to hear. What the possible outcomes look like and that positive progress is being made. Thank you indeed for being with us. God bless and take care.
Ms. Ali, may I just say thank you for the praise and for the du'as. It means so much. May you have a good day.
From the bottom of our hearts, and you too, please keep safe. It is exactly 9:27 news and views on Salam Media. We're moving on, and we are now going to be talking about the situation in Riverlee. So from one disaster zone to another, and Riverlee is literally in our backyard here at Salam Media. So we will be talking with Riverlee community leader, activist, and former councillor and of Ward 68, and that is Fuad Frenzen. So please do stay with us.